Welcome to the Project Management Happy Hour. Our aim is to share frank and honest discussion about real-world issues in project management, but do it in a way that's not too dry, though it might get a bit salty sometimes. Random happy hour chatter. What does a PM really do? How does fear sabotage decision-making? And what lessons learned can we have from striking out on your own?
We did a podcast on say, do, say, maybe like 8 years ago. Can you remind us what is say, do, say? Like the definition of done, I guess I should say, right, is defining what it means to be done. What is the definition of say, do, say?
Yeah, say, do, say, it's a loop. I don't even know where it comes from or who invented it, but it's 3 steps. They kind of create a cycle. First, you say what you're going to do. And then the next part is you do what you said you were going to do, but you don't end there. You have to say what you did. You have to communicate with everybody. Look, we did this thing. Here's the thing we did. And so it's say, do, say. Say what you're going to do what you said you were going to do, and then say what you did.
This came out of a question where you were like, what's the most simple way to describe what a PM does? And I don't know if that's right, but I don't remember the question that you asked where maybe you were like, what's the most important thing for a project manager to do? But this is where I was like, definition of done. And you were like, say, do, say. So I don't know if you remember that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Was that the question? What is the most simple way to describe what a PM does?
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about what is project management? How should I think about it? Should I be a project manager? And so, we want to try to find a simple way to describe at its core, in this most simple way to describe what project management is. We want to be able to do that efficiently. And, just saying you're a glorified secretary doesn't quite capture it, even though I feel that way sometimes. And so one of the ways that I've always liked to think of it is it's the old say, do, say loop, where you say what you're going to do, you do what you said, and then you say what you did. And we can dig down into each aspect of this, but to me, that just always seemed really core, just a very efficient way to describe what project managers do. And I posited this to Kate Anderson, and Kate said, no, that's not it at all.
For me and what I've done in project management, my biggest thing is the definition of done. Because for me, I guess I am so hung up on, I'm going to go with doing the right work. So, because what happens is, I do feel like anybody can go do stuff. I've worked with a lot of engineers, a lot of really smart people who go do things, but often those are not the things that the requester wanted. And I feel like the reason why a project manager is brought in is because the requester kind of doesn't know how to ask for what they really want. And the project manager's job is to make sure that what it was that you really want, requester or project sponsor, executive sponsor, whoever, and then how can we make sure that that's exactly what the project team does? And then after you have that defined, then you do say, do, say. That's how I've always thought about it. At least that's how my career has gone.
Yeah. And after you said that, I thought they're wrong. And then I thought, no, I want to change my answer.
Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I changed my answer though to there's a lot of correctness there, because as you say, a good project manager is a partner that helps you get stuff done, and you don't know what that done is, right? And there's no sense in even starting the say, do, say loop until you at least know what that is. And then so often when projects go haywire and go wrong, it's because there was ambiguity, or you weren't, there was something wrong up front in defining what that done is. Or when you try to get to the finish line and there is no finish line, again, a symptom of not a good definition of done.
It's interesting. So, because if we're talking about so somebody says, Kate, Kim, should I go into project management? And the answer to that question, and there's many types of project managers, right? It's like we couldn't paint anybody with a broad swath. I'm really good at starting projects. I am really good at starting projects and getting them through chaos. I am very bad at the tail end of projects. I'm very bad at finishing. I'm so good at 80% of the work, and then the end of it, perhaps the denouement of project management, I'm terrible at because I'm like, it's basically done. But the hard part of defining what needs to happen and assuring we have the right people involved, getting people getting buy-in, aligning on what we want to have at the end of it. I'm so good at that. I need like today I was like, man, I need to put like a job application out on the internet for like a finisher so that they can come and be like, is this done? Is this done? Is this done? And I'll be like, yes, shut up. Stop bothering me. Cause it's 80%. So it's almost done anyways. So I'm so sorry. There's a long way of coming back to like, when I think about, people asking, should I go into project management? What's it like? From my point of view, that's what it's like. It's about all this messy, hairy people who don't know how to ask for what they want, people who working with teams that may not ask the right types of follow-up questions, and who also are not setting expectations about how long it's going to take to get things done. That's the part that I think about.
Yeah, and that's a really important part of it. But I still think that's not all of it. Of course, you get the
Agreed.
definition of done, and then you still have to have some kind of the actual doing of the thing to get to the done. And to me, I still like the say, do, say loop, because you have to, not only do you have to have the definition of done, but you have to say what you're going to do. Say, hey, let's get everybody aligned. This is what we're going to do. Are we all aligned? This definition of done, this is the thing we're going to do. You're going to give me what I need to get it done. You're going to let me do it. This is the way I think we need to get it done. And then you go and you do the thing and you tell everybody, look, we did it. And then after it's all done, you say, look, here's what we did. Does this give you what you need? Are we good? Are you satisfied now? Is there a phase 2? How do we wrap this up and demonstrate we've done what we said we're going to do and then close things out? And those just, to me, so often just that punctuating rhythm of those 3 steps really punctuates a lot of what we do. Is those are when we've got to grab our stakeholders and sometimes by the ear and drag them along and say, look, I did this. This is what we said we're going to do. We did it. And just to pull them along, it's just that kind of rhythm. To me, that's what a lot of times it feels like.
I do agree. It's really funny. I think whenever you've been doing this for a long time, that part of it just feels so innate to the job. Hey, I'm doing this thing. Now we're doing it. We just did that thing. Remember how we did that thing? That I think I can't imagine. Like it's almost like you're not good at seeing your own strengths because they're right in front of you, or like they're not even in front of you. They're just so innate to you. I mean, that is the day-to-day. I do think the say is the day-to-day. But I do think that there is this, I hate these, and I think our listeners will empathize or agree with me. I hate these things that go out about how project managers are useless, like the memes about project managers doing nothing. And these are people who've worked with bad project managers, and there's bad project managers out there, right? Who all they do is like, what are you going to do? When is it supposed to be done? And then they check in on that date, and then I don't want to say lie, but they just communicate poorly about when things are going to be done to those stakeholders. And then they end up promising what this team can do incorrectly. And I don't think the people who listen to our podcast are like that. I think the people who listen to our podcast are tryhards who work with the team, want to build trust, are working on both like managing up and empathizing with the team. So we're going up, we're going horizontally, we're going below, like we're managing in all directions. So when I see those things where it's like the project manager, there's this one dude in particular, he's always yelling in his corporate stuff where he's like, when will the thing be done? The thing is not done yet. Great. Is it done? And I hate him in particular because I don't also like being portrayed as somebody who's obnoxious like that. But I think that while say is a great abbreviation of what we do day to day, I don't think it encapsulates some of the more nuanced soft skills, challenging work of something like defining the definition of done. Because most people who are we just came back from the PMI Global Summit in November. And a lot of what was talked about there was about why are we doing these things? What's the definition of success? How are we staying connected? And that part of the job is the value add. And you and I spoke on 3 different occasions at PMI Global. And at least one of them, I said that We know AI is coming and it's going to change jobs, blah, blah, blah. But that part of it, this listening feedback loop of trying to understand where people are coming from, what the definition of done is, and the nuances of human communication, like that's not really something that AI is ever going to be able to do for us, because AI can only really operate out of what you feed into it. But it's never going to be as good as a person at that particular part of the project. So that's why I think that that's the most important part, because I think the most important part is the thing that a machine couldn't replicate. To be fair, I don't think it could replicate say either, but like it could, but then you still have to get people to put the information in the tool. And we know they're not going to do that.
It's true. Yeah. If all you're focused on is the say, the rhythm and just the doing, then of course you run the major risk of doing the wrong things, right? And not having that alignment, which is what a lot of the discussion at PMI Global was about. And I think the new PMI more, I think the R is for relentlessly reassess something.
Yeah.
Like, I actually dig that. I'm like, all right, you should always be reassessing. Is this really, is this still the right done? Are we still getting close to that done? Is this done still relevant? Do we need to change what that is?
Well, one of the things that comes up that's a big reality in project management, right, is you know, it depends on where you're at, right? If you're at a big organization that moves pretty slow and you kick off a project that you know is going to take 2 years long, but then you learn a lot of things as you go through that project, like that the budget's going to double, or you're not going to realize the cost savings, or that there aren't going to be thousands of users, it's going to be 2 users, you know, whatever it is that you realize, you know, those require reassessment. You have to reassess if you learn new information that is counter to the project goal. If you learn there's only going to be 2 users of something, do not invest, you know, 6 or 7 figure sums of money into a project, right? That's not a good goal. Like I agree with you. I think that is a really great way to think about it. And that's, I think I go back to definition of done for that, but it is more of a relentlessly reassess.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything else that we're missing? And this is, of course, there's all these other things that we do, so many things. So much is important. But if we're just talking about the core, is it definition of done and say, like if I say, I want to get some bling that represents the core of project management. I want a big gold medallion I'm going to invest in. It's going to be all sparkly. Is that medallion a little say loop with definition of done in rubies across the top of it? Is that my medallion?
I mean, no. Yeah, but you know what it's going to be. It's going to be get shit done. Right? That's what it's going to be. You know, if I was going to get like a piece of bling, Kim, you're dating yourself, but a piece of bling, that would say get shit done. Because I think most folks would say, yeah, getting things done is why I do the job. I like seeing stuff happen, right? Like Kim and I have talked about if project managers are born or made, and I'm of the opinion that they're born. I was born being like, I want to do a thing. Why hasn't the thing happened? I want to do the thing. Now I'll be that guy who's like, why hasn't the thing happened? Like that is me. I do want the thing to have happened. But I was the person in college who was planning the spring break trip and coordinating the vans that we rented and the places, the vacation rental that we had booked. And this is before Airbnb. So that was actually far more coordination than is needed today. I had the spreadsheets out for who owes what. I coordinate our trip to go to Gen Con every year. So I'm a person who likes to see things happen. And I have friends who want to show up, but they don't want to organize everybody else doing that. So I do think if we were to summarize it down to one sentence, it would be like, what is a project manager? The person who gets stuff done. But if we want to be like, what do you do all day? You could say get stuff done. But I do think it's nuanced, I suppose.
I like that. That might be my medallion again.
Yeah.
So, Kate, as you know, I am right now on the board of directors for my Alaska Native Corporation.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been interesting. And one of the things we did at our last board meeting is we had some consultants come in and talk to us about kind of strategy, geopolitical happenings, how we respond, all that kind of stuff. And the gentleman who ran this consultancy is actually a retired Army general.
Okay.
So he had a really interesting perspective coming from the military, a very high level in the military. And I pulled him aside after his talk at the lunch break, and I was chatting with him because he does a lot of consultation with C-level executives to help them make hard decisions about strategy. And I said, so, General, where do you see most people struggle? What is the biggest mistake that people make who are executives in decision making? And he thought about it and he says, well, the biggest problem with decision making is that people won't make hard decisions if it forces them to change.
Ooh, yeah.
Even if it's the right decision, even if all the evidence is there, if the right decision forces them to think differently, to change the way they do things, they resist it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, then I have a story that I like to repeat when a topic like this comes up. I read about this in Amanda Palmer wrote a book a while ago called The Art of Asking. And in that book, she tells this story. And, it's probably a story somebody else told her. But there's a little girl and she's walking down a street. She walks by a house. She can hear a dog howling inside the house. There's an old man on the porch. So she goes up to that old man and she says, "Hey, is that a dog howling in there?" And the old man says, "Yep." And she goes, "Why is he howling?" And he says, "Well, he's sitting on a nail." She goes, "Doesn't that hurt?" And he says, "I bet it does." And she says, "Why doesn't he get off the nail?" And the old man says, "He's not done howling about it yet." And so the moral of this story is that I agree with you, right? People don't want to change, even when it's causing them pain. A lot of people would rather howl. They'd rather sitting on the nail could be, "I hate my job. I don't like going there every day. And I so miserable. Anywhere else would be lucky to have me." But you just come home every night. You say that every single night. You say the same thing, even if you're miserable, and you would rather howl about it than get off the nail and go do something different. I think, and one of my deep beliefs is that we get comfortable with the feelings that we have all the time. So they talk about devil you know versus devil you don't. And then you're like, I hate my job. I hate everybody I work with. They're so lucky to have me. I don't get what I deserve. But if you were to change jobs, you don't know if they'd view you as the hero every time you solved a problem. You don't know if you're good enough for those people. And most folks aren't going to say those things out loud. But most people feel comfortable with their whatever their misery is because they know it. And change is terrifying, even if what's currently happening to you is making you miserable or costing the company money. But I do think that our own personal fear of being different holds us back in all kinds of situations. So I agree with you. Or this executive.
Yeah. So the corollary of what he said is that we tend to make decisions that protect the status quo, even if status quo is sitting on a nail.
Exactly. It takes a really brave person to evaluate a situation and say, in so many words, "Am I the problem?" And it doesn't mean that you sit there and you say, "Am I a bad decision maker?" Right? It means more is this behavior that I tend towards bad for me? And should I let go of that behavior? That is very hard for people. I've been in therapy for a long time. I don't have a therapist right now though, but I'm a big believer in therapy and I have done a lot of parts therapy. And I wonder if any of our listeners have. But one of the things that you do when you identify a part, and the super short summary of parts therapy is whenever you say there's a part of me that wants to punch that guy, or there's a part of me that wants to quit that job. Parts therapy says there is a part of you, a literal personality. And this isn't multiple personality disorder. This is just there's a little version of yourself that does want to do that thing. And in parts therapy, when you, at least the type that I did, when you identify a part, it's because that part has helped you in some way. I definitely have a part. Her name is Paris. And whenever she's stressed out, she's it's my worst behavior under stress is treating people like they are not people and they are machines. I'm like, what are you doing? Where is the thing? I don't care about who you are. We got deadlines. Do this for me. And that has served me in my career, right? Being I'm stressed. I don't have emotions. Deliver now because I said so, right? That has served me in some ways. But what would serve me more is being a human. And it did. But one of the things you do when you identify a part like that is you say, "Thank you because your part, like what the reason when it comes up is like that part is stressed out. It's like, I've tried so hard to keep you safe. This behavior has tried so hard to keep you safe, right? Because even whenever you're stressed, you still get things done, Kate. You needed me to help you with this. And you say, thank you, part. I really appreciate that. But that behavior is something that we don't need anymore. And I really appreciate everything you've done, but I want to try to do something new. And that whole process usually involves a ton of tears. It's very hard to get there. And to acknowledge that like something that has served you is hurting you is really, 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 really hard to do. So I bring that up, I think, because, our human brains in our day-to-day life, we are not subject to, hippos chasing us in Africa anymore, but our brains are still wired for it. So since we don't have threats that are like actually life-threatening, our brain is turning things like making a decision about what we should do into a life-threatening decision. And we hold on to these patterns even though they don't serve us. From the outside, it's like, yeah, you should do other, I think this is why people bring in consultants, because the consultant doesn't have all the emotional attachment to the business, and they can tell them a new story about how exciting their life would be if they followed a new path. And it hurts less than you deciding that this previous strategy you decided on would be the best one for the business.
Yeah. So I guess what we're saying is that this behavior, good or bad, has kept me alive and employed this long. So, so there's a natural tendency to resist. I haven't been killed by a hippo yet, so I'm doing something right.
Exactly.
And so, if I understood right, another thing that you said there was really when it does come time to make the hard decision, which forces you to change, to acknowledge that it's hard, whether you name it Paris or something else. Just to acknowledge, like, this is going to be hard, and this is why I'm probably at some level resisting this.
Yeah, very much. Yes. I've worked with like I coach, and what you have to do is you have to get down, like in order for behavior to change, you have to identify essentially why you don't want to change. And then you have to talk directly to that resistance on why not. And I will say broad sweeping generalization, right? In general, women are more in touch with their feelings. It's easier for them to talk about that. In general, men are less in touch, harder at times for them to talk about that. And I'm seeing this in some of the things that personal and professional in my life. But when you can get down to what is the reason why I'm resisting this and really sit with that, so much change, like exponential change comes from being able to sit with that. And I know that we have listeners who've worked with really insecure executives. When we did how to respond to stupid executive asks at PMI Global, that was really fun. I took a lot of audience questions about executives. And there were some executives where there were no consequences for them not listening to the person. There were no consequences and nobody could get them to listen. To which my advice in those situations was like, find a new job. Yeah. Like if there's no path for consequences, then this person isn't like, because then you can't get to like, unless you are that person's therapist, which most of our listeners are not qualified to be, then you're not going to be able to help them understand how this behavior is hurting themselves, because it is so personal. It is so intimate, for lack of a better word, because you are acknowledging that you could be the problem. And most people are terrified of that feeling.
Yeah. And you're also, by definition, potentially going off to do something completely new, which is scary anyway.
Also scary. So I'm wrong, and then I have to do something new. And that's why you get from really insecure people, you get these nasty responses when you attempt to gently point out how they are hurting themselves.
Yeah.
There's a woman who wrote a book called Why Won't You Apologize? And the premise of that book is that people can only apologize from I'm going to call it a solid foundation. Right? You have to have a solid foundation of self-esteem in order to be able to apologize. And that solid foundation of self-esteem is like, if I did something that hurt your feelings, Kim, and you're like, hey, that hurt my feelings. If I am secure, I can say, like my internal monologues include things like, I'm not a bad person, but I must have done something to accidentally hurt Kim's feelings. And so I want to address that. I'm going to come to Kim and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Can you tell me what happened? And work through that with Kim. But if I am insecure and I'm on a shaky foundation where I think, right, my self-esteem is low. So I think I'm trash. And having been through, we just did the burnout episode. So having been through that, right, I'm trash and nobody likes me. I don't make good work. Who would want to be with me? Like working or otherwise, meh. And then you say, you hurt my feelings. I, on that shaky foundation, like don't have anything, literally, I don't have things to stand on. So I go, great, another thing I'm just bad at, right? And so that's a response I could say. Or if I really feel bad, this is a thing that many depressed people can do, is say, oh yeah, well, you're worse than I am. And then say something mean back because they're trying to make themselves feel better. But like, that's all coming from that shaky place. When they talk about being the bigger person, they're talking about that self-esteem. Doesn't mean you should tolerate behavior like that, to be clear. But I think I bring it up because like that foundation matters when it comes to hard decisions, right? Because it's this, right? It's like, if you've been making bad business decisions, are you a bad person, right? Or if you fall down into the like, oh no, I'm a bad person who made a bad business decision, like I just suck at everything, that'll be much harder to change. If instead, and people talk about approach decisions with curiosity, but you can only come to curiosity if you have enough self-esteem to be able to say, you don't think I'm making good decisions? I mean, why not? I've tried so hard. Like, interesting. Tell me more about that. Like I have been far more curious since getting over burnout versus in burnout, where I was like, everything sucks, no change. I like my misery the way that it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you can identify those leaders where they're incapable of admitting that they've been wrong.
Yes.
They don't even get to apology. They're intellectually or emotionally, I don't know, but unable to acknowledge they've ever done anything wrong. And those leaders are dangerous to be around and to work for, because if in their mind they cannot acknowledge that they're wrong, then when something goes wrong, it clearly wasn't them. It must have been somebody else. Maybe it was you. And so that is just a very dangerous executive or manager to be working around. And that's definitely a red flag. Get away from that.
Yeah, you and I have worked with a lot of those people, right? And so there are some people who just need to be, pumped up every time you talk to them so that they really feel like you're making them safe. Like they talk about psychological safety in the workplace, and like this is what they're talking about. But to your point, like, fish stinks from the head. If the leaders are walking around blaming everybody else, you never get to psychological safety.
Yeah, and just to continue on that line of thought, without that feeling of safety, there's a lack of honesty, I guess, and frank conversation. And so a lot of the conversation just doesn't happen, and you can't make good decisions that way.
Yeah, when it comes to like people won't make hard decisions that force them to change. Maybe my take on this, kind of coming all the way back around, is like, I don't think that people can be forced to change. I think that anybody who changes is deciding to change. There might be a situation that really makes you acutely aware that you must change in order to overcome. I think lots of people have been through situations like that in their life, and they may be like, I was forced to change. But there are people who just, those situations happen to them and they still choose not to change. They say, no, I'm not going to change in this situation. Right. And there are times too where like not changing is for the better, where being who you are leads to incredible outcomes. And so I also think it's a deeply personal journey, right? Like Wicked is out in movie theaters, and like Elphaba never changes. Or we could argue if she changes at the end of the movie, but she decides to stand up for, rights of people who are different, and does not waver throughout that, but acknowledges like what her life is like because of what she's decided to do. And with Glinda's character as well, like she does change because she acknowledges how she's contributing to something. And she could say she felt, quote unquote, forced to change because of her friend and the impact that her friend had on her. But like, she didn't have to. She didn't have to choose to change. She could have continued to go on and be the Glinda that she's always wanted to be, and pretend that the things she was feeling were not there, and become an insecure, evil person, probably over the trajectory of her life. So I do think that everybody who changes chooses to change. And most people do not, maybe not most people, but like, I don't know. It's hard to want to change if you haven't decided to do it on your own. But you also don't change unless you experience negative consequences of that. So that's just life, it feels like.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, the movie, because I haven't seen that, but
yeah,
totally on board and totally agree. Personally and professionally, people cannot and will not change unless they decide to. And that's the, you can't make somebody change. They're going to change or they're not.
Yeah, it's up to them to decide if they're really going to do that. And I think that's a big part in choosing who you work with, is paying attention to how they change. And like everybody has limitations. I have limitations. No one is perfect. And sometimes you'll work with people who make it clear who they are, and you need to listen whenever they say that. And because you're like, well, why won't they change? And sometimes it's like, well, you actually have to be the person who changes. I worked with a leader who I adored. I adored working with this person, but my job was miserable. And I had a great working relationship with him. And I was like, please, man, you got to tell me that you want this to be different. You've got to tell me that this isn't how you want the job to feel like. You've got to, right? And he was like, yeah, I don't want you to feel that way, with no changes accompanying that feelings acknowledgement. Like he just did not want to be an active participant in making things different for me. And I was like, crap, like you've shown me who you are. I was really clear about what I needed. You didn't want to do that. I have to change. I have to go someplace new. And, I could have just chosen to sit on that nail. But I decided I didn't want to sit on that nail anymore. So I'm one of the few people I know that will get off nails pretty frequently in my life. My favorite thing, actually, like since like working for myself, is like I have other people I've worked with. I'm like they're so like they're like, I mean crazy, like in an affectionate way. Like they're so crazy they started their own business. To which my wife is like, you also are crazy. Like you also started your own business. Like you too, you two are crazy. And I was like, oh yeah. But at the same time, like I don't know. The thing about working for yourself is like a lot of it is up to you. And there's a lot of positives with that and a lot of negatives with that. But right now, I really prefer it.
Yeah, you got me thinking, what nail am I sitting on right now? What nails have I got?
Mm-hmm. Well, for you, one of them has been your time and how busy you've been.
Yeah.
Right? We've been talking about that.
It's true.
You have 4 jobs right now.
Yeah, that's too many.
It's too many jobs. And at the start of this, we talked about some of your hobbies and downsizing on hobbies.
Downsizing hobbies right now. Yep.
Yeah, because you want to prioritize your time differently. So do you feel like you were put into a hard decision that forced you to change?
I would say perhaps I put myself into a position where I'm forcing myself to change.
Mm-hmm. Does that feel empowering or does that feel...
It's scary because you got to change, right? Uncharted territory, letting things go that you're used to hanging on to,
Mm-hmm.
kind of those things that have given you security. Oh, I'm good at this, so I'll keep doing it. Now you got to let that go and change, or let some of these things go that you're attached to. So yeah, change is tough.
Yeah. I think whenever I was at that corporate job, I think I put myself into that position. I could have left earlier. I stayed because I had a proven pattern that things tended to shift every 6 months or so after I got unhappy. But that did not happen. And then I was like, oh no. Well, the only option, if you want this to change, then is that you have to go. And I was like, I don't want to go. I can't go. There's no way. Like, I got totally burned out. And like, we've had James Luted on. That's his story too. He had to be in the hospital in order to decide to change. I have a friend and mentor who also had to go to the hospital. She had learned she had really like an advanced stage cancer, which was what made her change. Right? A lot of these things end up being like your body gives out, So that's why there's so many of those stories. But there are signs before we end up in the hospital, and most people don't want to listen to those signs.
Yeah.
I do have a question, if you want to talk about it.
Yes.
So, Kim, I feel like I am sort of like you, maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago. I quit my corporate job to start working for myself. Huzzah. And you've been working for yourself for at least a decade. I don't know how many more years than that it is, but a long time. So I am now a baby in this journey that you've done for a long time. And my question to you is, based off your experience, what advice would you give somebody who's beginning the working for themselves journey?
Oh my gosh. There are a lot of tactical things that come to mind, but those are easy to figure out and sort out. And if you don't figure them out yet, you'll trip on them and you'll find them that way. I think one of the best pieces of advice I saw come in when I was in an accelerator for when I was working through RaidLog. We got into a couple of really cool early stage accelerators. And there's some fantastic mentors associated with some of the programs here, Phoenix Forward and Arizona Commerce Authority, just some really, really amazing people that donate their time. And there was one comment there. Somebody mentioned, I don't remember who it was, but it comes down to this. You got to want it. You got to want it. And really what that boils down to is whatever you're going to do as a business, you can, of course, pivot and change. But the thing that you're doing, you're going to be married to that, and it's going to be hard. They'll have ups. You're going to have downs. You're going to have days when you Sunday afternoon and you're just hating life because Monday's coming. And there's going to be hard things, there's going to be cash flow problems. There could be legal problems. There could be all kinds of things that have to go on that you're going to struggle with. And if you're going to make it through that, you really got to want what you're doing. You've got to really have it linked into your purpose, your vision, your mission, whatever you want to call it. In your core, there's got to be something really strong that says, I'm going to do this regardless of how difficult it is. And I was at a retreat in September, and there was a guy there named Clayt Mask. And Clayt is a pretty amazing guy. He was one of the founders of Keep, which is now Infusionsoft Keep. Now he runs the Phoenix Forward organization. And he tells a story like one of his pieces of advice is that every day when you get up, there are 1,000 reasons why your business should fail, 1,000 reasons why it should not work. And he says, you have to be stronger than every one of those 1,000 reasons. And so I guess that would be my advice is, whatever you're going to do, if you're, whatever you're going to focus on as a business, of course you can pivot and change it, but you've really got to feel it and really got to want to do it to be successful and stick through the icky times.
Okay. My follow-up question here is, do you think you got to want it? For it, is it working for yourself, or is it what your business is doing, or is it something else? Or a combo, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I think some of that depends on how easy it is for you to pivot. So if you say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do coaching and mentoring and instruction services, those are kind of easy. You can kind of pivot from one to the other. And so I think there it's more, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to go do it. If it's something that requires more investment and structure, so I'm going to build an app that's going to solve problem XYZ or problem X.
Excellent prioritization on just problem X. Well done.
Yeah, problem X. Yeah. If I'm going to go open up a storefront and I'm going to sell some kind of widget or make stuff, what is that thing? And so I think the more that you have to invest and the harder it is to turn the ship and pivot, then the more you have to be invested in that thing to drive it forward. So yeah. Does that help?
Yeah. It is funny that you got to be stronger than every one of those 1,000 reasons. Like, I'm delusional to tell my brain to shut up, because sometimes my brain will be like, la, 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 people are better than you. Their offering is so pretty, or whatever. And I got to be like, I'm delusional. It'll work out. Like, you just have to, this is accompanied by me working on things and investing time and, doing the business things. But like, when those 1,000 reasons show up, I have to tell my brain, shut up, we're delusional. Like, I'm not listening to the reasons. I'm focusing on what I think will work.
There's something definitely to that. And, you believe in your own delulu. Is that the thing you say? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let your delulu come trululu. It's so stupid. I love it.
You have to do that because there are always so many reasons why something's not going to work. If you always listen to those reasons, nothing would ever happen. Nobody would ever start. If everybody had a perfectly sober view of what they're going to do, nobody would ever do anything.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a little bit of balance there, which is the tough part, because it's easy to say you got to ignore all 1,000 reasons. But really, sometimes you need to listen. I mean, I've had businesses where I've started and I've launched and I've dumped a lot of my own money into it. My very first business, I tried to go out and do my own thing at, and it just didn't work. And I finally, after not listening, to those 1,000 reasons, I finally had to listen to my wife when she said, no, this is not working. You need to do some math here. And yeah, so, and I think that's kind of the trick, is to know where is that point where you got to pull yourself back and say, yeah, this is not working.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a difference between gremlin thoughts that are just trying to be like little meanies that are just trying to be like, oh, you think you could start a business? You're dumb. Versus like, Interesting. I wonder if that's a market signal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think those are two different. Oh, look, I'm more in the red than I am in the black. Like, some of those things are data points. They are not insecurities.
They are. And you've got to be, there's an element of realism in here. It was like the underwear gnomes. Step 1, collect underpants. Step 3, profit. You can't skip step number 2.
Agreed. I do know that I'm super execution focused. So for me, I'm like, you just have to do the things, Kate, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I also keep getting signals that it is working.
You got to know your numbers. You got to understand what those metrics are that you need to measure your success. Is this thing working, or do I have to pivot, or not altogether? And if you're not minding the numbers, you're going to go way too far off the cliff.
Yes, I do all the budgeting for my family. I'm very good at monitoring the numbers. So I'm like, no, we're gonna do this. Yeah, if I had a red month, I'd be like, I'm sorry. We are doing something else now. But ideally, there would have been other indicators beforehand with other data and systems that I've got. So gotta want it.
Yes. Well, those were 3 random conversations. And if our listeners would like to continue those conversations, where should they go?
You should go to pmhappyhour.com/membership and you should join our membership. Why? 1, because I do that funny WH sound at the beginning of why. Secondly, because you can build the soft skills that you need to confidently lead a room and your toughest projects. You can have conversations with other like-minded project managers in our Mighty Networks community. And Kate and Kim, that's us in the third person. We lead webinars twice a month, and they cover things like how to bring up risk management, how to get a stakeholder to care and invest in what you're doing. We've had guests on to talk about career advancement. So there's 2 webinars a month where Kate and Kim are providing soft skill overviews, and those are also worth PDUs. And of course, last but not least, we'll upload those PDUs for you to PMI, because that's a pain and nobody likes doing that part. And so you could pay us to upload your PDUs. So one more time, Kim, where can they go to get a membership? Where can that be?
pmhappyhour.com/membership.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you like the episode, drop a comment or send us a note.
Love it. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you liked our show, please leave a review and a comment on iTunes or wherever you get our podcast. Your review really does mean a lot. And if you want to check out our membership site and all of our cool content there, you can check that out at pmhappyhour.com/membership. If you want to talk to us directly about project management, PM consulting, training, or whatever, our contact info is on our website under About Your Hosts, or you can just hit us up on our Facebook site at PM Happy Hour. You'll find we're really pretty easy to get a hold of there. And that's it for today. Good luck with your projects, and we hope to catch you again at the next PM Happy Hour. Cheers.